I'm grateful to God that we are here at this conference to learn. And I'm one of those learning. So even as I stand here, do not see it as a position of teaching, but a position for me to also learn. And I thank God for our primate who approved that this conference should hold, and also permitted that myself should be part of those who will be here for the conference. Let us welcome the Dean of our church, the Church of Nigeria. Welcome your grace. Welcome your grace. So as I was saying, the primate permitted that I should also be part of this team, and I'm grateful to him for that opportunity. I want to also recognize our father-in-law, the Dean of our church, who himself is an expert in communication, the Most Reverend Dr. Blessed Ainda, who just walked in and is already exchanging pleasantry with the Bishop Theologian. I thank also the Archbishop of Bendel Province, who is our host and who helped us yesterday at the communion service and also represented the primate in presenting the address. My father, the Bishop Theologian, is here. I have said some things about him earlier, and if I have my way, I will say some more, but I will not bother you. But he has touched my life in a very significant way that I would always remain grateful to. Perhaps one of those ending stories that I did not say out of excitement was the fact that my convocation or my certificate, doctoral certificate, so he gave me two doctoral certificates, one at the seminary, one at the university. The last assignment he would do, and he had to postpone and call the Senate of the school for another unscheduled meeting just to approve my own certificate and that of others before the next day he exited he ended his term or tenure as VC of Ajayi Crowther University in Oyo. So I can tell you that he has taught me in different ways. So I have two PhDs all under my father. One in theology, one in Christian religious studies, all facilitated by him. I know he told me when I was finishing that one, he said, there's another one again, I will call you when he starts. I say, I beg, Ejo Baba, take it easy with me. But I must thank him always, and thank you for your teaching here. The communication officer of the Church of Nigeria and the general manager of ACNN, Brother Korede Akintunde, is doing very well. I appreciate you for ensuring that this is organized after a long break of this kind of conference. Thank you so much for your work. And I want to appreciate every one of you, the assistant communicators, media officers, director of ICT, or whatever name you are coming with from your dioceses. We appreciate you sincerely. Also to thank the organizing committee, especially our chairman from the Diocese of Dajur. Thank you so much for your work. When they told me you are the chairman of the organizing committee, I was happy because I knew that it would be done well. And I can tell you that this is one of the most successful conferences I've attended in the Church of Nigeria since I became General Secretary. And I'm not flattering you because the content is very rich and the choice of the persons to make presentations was also up. If after now they query me for making a remark like this, please, you will protect me, but I can tell you this is worth it. I have connection to issues of communication, but I am a novice in the area. While I was in the secondary school, my school started a current affairs club. And I was one of those who first enrolled into that club. And the essence is to make opportunities for the student community to understand things that are happening. So I was involved with them. Then I had the privilege of studying at the Federal College of Education, and then there was the Campus Union of Journalists. I was also enrolled there, and I have my ID card. It's somewhere hiding in my documents. I have an ID card as a campus journalist. And then I continued again as a priest in the Diocese of Jos. One of the years, about 7 or 8 years ago, I told my bishop there used to be I never saw a copy, but he used to remind us of that when he became bishop in 1992, he started a newsletter of the diocese called New Times. And after a few persons took charge of it, they couldn't sustain it, so it died midway. And so the story was what we were hearing, but we never saw it. So one of the days I was not appointed, I was not a canon, I was just a reverend, but I approached him and said, can we revive this thing? He said all the Christians tried to engage to revive this thing have tried and have failed. So he's tired of trying. I said, can you permit me to start it? So he said, you can go ahead. And I started it. Now, if New Times, if you put that picture, I gave you some pictures just going to show. But to say that in the Diocese of Jos, I started as the editor of the New Times, and I introduced it again, and we started, and I was publishing and selling it to the churches in a very meager amount, and there was no support, but I was ready to move on. And I will get messages from the bishop on issues, and I will publish them, and I will give the people, and people are beginning to like it, and I was also sharing it on the social media. Then I started, if you ever see the Diocese of Jos now on the social media, always posting their pictures and things like that, I started it with my own phone. Nobody gave me any official phone. I just felt I should make the Diocese of Jos known. So I started taking pictures of conferences, of clergy meetings, of retreats, and I would take them and then post them on my social media. If you check my social media of 2015, 2016, you will see that I self-appointed myself as the man in charge of such publicity for the diocese. And I was doing that one. One of the days I got a WhatsApp message from the Church of Nigeria that asked clergy to submit articles for publication in the Church of Nigeria Clergy magazine, Calvary Compass. How many of you are aware of that one? I had no idea of who the organizers were, but since it was Church of Nigeria and I'm a Church of Nigeria priest, I decided to write my article and I submitted my article. Talk about communication. When I submitted my article, it was last year, only last year, when I was returning from a trip from leadership conference in Port Harcourt, when I sat down with the former Primate Chaplain, now Bishop Festus Wafili, that I bought a book and I was reading and I underlined something about the book and I said, I thank God for Primate Oko. Because I told him, I said, I do not know where Primate Oko knew me, that he was able to call my name and say, this person should also come and do the interview for General Secretary. So when I told him, he laughed. After 5 years, nobody had told me. He laughed. He said, I know when he got your name. He said, the place the primate saw your name, even without seeing you, was the Clergy magazine where you contributed an article on the authority of the scripture. I wrote that not because I was looking for the primate to read, I just wrote it because there was a call to write and I decided to write. But I tell you that that was the publication that brought my name to the office of the primate to be invited to participate in the interview and examination for General Secretary. I would reveal to you that if God wants to use you, He will have a different way of using you. As at that time, I was a reverend canon. I was qualified by years of service and things to be a venerable, but you know, venerable is not by qualification, it's by preferment. So I was not preferred, but I was a canon. And yet, I was asked to come and do this interview. And I told my Archbishop, and I said, excuse me, Your Grace, by everything, I am not qualified because I am a reverend canon, and this assignment is for those who are venerables. You know what my bishop told me? He said, please, who told you in the first instance that I want to release you to Church of Nigeria? If you go there and they are not willing to take you, please come back. Somehow, I went there, and I told the chairman of the interview panel is here seated. And I wrote his name actually on my CV because his name is permanently on my CV without his permission. And I know he can't deny me. I wrote his name as my first referee on the form. And I was not expecting to see Bishop Dajur at that meeting. Because I never even told him that somebody has invited me, because I never believed that I would be taken. After all, I'm not qualified, so I have already disqualified myself, but since I was forced to be there, I went. And we wrote the first exam. So when I entered now, I saw Bishop Dajur on the panel. At that time, I didn't even know he was the chairman. So I was wondering now, see me, see trouble. I have written his name without his permission. Anyhow, God helped me. I did the written exams. It was intensive. So anybody who is thinking of becoming General Secretary after me, remember, after me, you can't push me out. I still have some more years to go. After me, you must know. It was a serious theological exams. But also English is marked, content is marked, all of those things. And I wrote that. And then after that, we came in again for the oral interview. And to the glory of God, I responded well. It was after I responded that my bishop actually later told me that they told him that the primate called him and said, your young man became the best out of those who came for the interview. That he got 96%. So don't laugh for me now, I'm telling you a story. He said I got 96%. But the primate told him that with his 96%, he has not met up with the criteria because he's still a reverend canon. So in my own calculation, I presume that bishops in their own way of talking, the primate must have told my bishop, do the needful. So I was sitting one of the days, and then I got a letter that I been preferred a venerable of no adjective. So after that preferment now, the next moment again, the letter came that I have been appointed General Secretary of the Church of Nigeria. So that's how much to me. So why do I say this story? Writing. Just writing. I was not writing to become General Secretary, sincerely. I was not writing for any accolades or anything. I was just writing to bless the body of Christ and to bless whoever will read. And sometimes it does happen. Recently, I tell you a tempting one. I do write on social media and I post them. And although I'm looking for money and I need money, if you give me money, I won't say no. But sometimes I feel that I prefer that people read me than they give me money. So I want people to read. And I love people giving me feedback. So one of the days now, just this, I said something about Lenten meditation, something Lenten on Lent services. And I sent it online. And one of the elderly persons is in the US now, but from Abuja. I've never met him in person, but he has been receiving my things and he always appreciates it. So he now sent me a message that he loved this content I presented on the Lenten meditation or on Lent. And he would like me to broadcast it more to people so that they'll get it. So I should send him my account number so that he can give me some money to get data to do some more. My estimation was that the man was going to give me, if he tries, 10,000, 20,000. And I reluctantly, I was almost going to say no, thank you, I've already broadcast it. But do you know, when I send my account number, not up to 10 minutes, he transferred 500,000 naira to my account. Anyway, I will share with you because it is exhausted already. I'm finishing. But so what am I saying? Communication is the thing. Whatever you have to communicate, you must communicate. And now, as the administrator of the Church of Nigeria Secretariat, I am fully into communication. I think that I am one of those that is read in the Church of Nigeria everywhere. Because when I issue letters, I issue communications, all of it goes round. And technology has helped me that with just a punch, I can reach all my bishops with a broadcast on their WhatsApp platforms, or just a punch on their email. So media is very important. So the topic that I've been asked to speak about, the speakers have already done justice to it, but since you would want to hear from the Church of Nigeria perspective, I will reiterate what my bishop professor has said and also buttress some parts. The diocesan communicator, leadership, spirituality, accountability, and diligent service. The Great Commission, the call to spread the good news of the love of God to all nations, hinges on effective communication. Naturally, when you mention the assistant communicator, what you are thinking about is writing and speeches. It is about writing and making of speeches. And of course, you will not be wrong if that is the case. But I think that the organizers of this conference felt that it is not all about writing and speaking. It has to do with the place of leadership, place of accountability, place of spirituality, and of diligent service. So it is all encompassing. And that is why when you are communicating as a communicator, the message must be clear, must be concise, must be engaging, must be informative, inspiring, and edifying, etc., etc. I'd like to illustrate to you the need to be clear with your communication with my own fault, with my own shortcoming. One of the days, I wrote a disclaimer on behalf of the Church of Nigeria, and I posted it everywhere on social media, and a retired military general called my attention, who was a member of my church before in Jos, called me and said, "General Secretary, I saw your disclaimer." I said, "Thank you, sir. We'll let you do something like that." He said, "That's very wonderful." But he said, "One of your sentences was too long." So he said, "Do you have the copy of the letter with you there?" I said, "No, I'm not with it." I said, "Whenever you get to your office," I thought you would just be over. He said, "Whenever you get to your office or wherever you can access it, open it and I will talk with you." And he told me that it was too long, to the extent that if care is not taken, someone who is not particular may miss the message I was communicating. So he said in the ministry, they were trained to be straight and short, precise. Speak, but short and give direction. He said, otherwise, the persons you are given command will not understand the command and the enemy will take over the place. So I recognize that there is need to be precise. Have I learned from his correction? I have learned, but sometimes the sentences will not agree to get short. So I keep struggling with them. But I thank God that sometimes in the midst of confusion, people still get the message. But it is good to be precise and concise and clear. Then I once had a story. My English teacher told us a story in the seminary days that was published. A grammarian whose house was razed down by fire because of too much grammar. The story had it that he woke up at one night and his house was on fire. But he had been known as a grammarian, someone who speaks big grammar. And he wouldn't reduce his grammar because his house was on fire. So he dialed the telephone of the fire service and called them. I said, his speech was this way. When they picked from their own office, he said, "Is that the combustion office?" I am sure the fire service officer will be looking for a dictionary, but you can't find dictionary there to find out what do you really mean by combustion office. So before he would answer, I say, "Accelerate here with tremendous acceleration and alacrity, because a gigantic conflagration has engulfed my domiciliary habitation." By the time the fire service would get to his house, the house was already burned down. Because there was no communication. He only created noise and nobody heard what he was saying. So the assistant communicators, much as we appreciate your vocabularies, it is good to know that the essence of communication is that you are passing message. And yesterday, I know that our chairman of LOC and other persons have spoken about the need for us to be effective in communication. And the essence of communication is that the person you are speaking with understands and is able to give you feedback. I think that was the presentation yesterday as I followed. So it is important to take note of that. Now I want us to look at the portrait of a diocesan communicator. Who is a diocesan communicator? You are one. And that's why you're here. You're a media officer, you are one, that's why you're here. But let us attempt describing briefly the portrait of a diocesan communicator. The diocesan communicator, by the way, is an appointee of the bishop, and therefore must work under the supervision of the bishop and takes directives from the bishop. And the work of a diocesan communicator is critical in the sense that it helps in coordinating and bridging the gap within and outside the diocese through effective and godly communication. Not the word godly. There are other communicators out there that can speak as they like, but there is the need for the diocesan communicator to speak godly words and godly communication. There are times that provocations will come upon us in Church of Nigeria at the Secretariat, and we would love to give them fire for fire. Because the content of the message that came to us is vulgar and offensive, and the natural man would want to also give it a matching vulgar and abusive language. But we will recognize that we are believers in Christ and we must be godly even at the point of provocation. So sometimes when Adam myself has written a communication to be released out, the primate will say, let us tone it down so that this will be understandable and will be okay. Or sometimes someone will write out and say, tone it down so that it will be godly. Because sometimes you get some people who will provoke you to the point of wanting to write what is not edifying. But godly communication is expected from diocesan communicators. And the diocesan communicator must know, and I hope you know, but I must remind you that the platform you have is wider than the one an average priest in a parish has. Whereas the priest in a parish has the pulpit or the lectern for his own pontification and to declare, the diocesan communicator is able to reach out to the entire diocese and even beyond by the office and the function he performs in the diocese. Yesterday, the Bishop Theologian, in teaching us, talked about the use of media and recalled the statement of John Wesley, who said the world is his parish. And I said, diocesan communicators have the world as their parish as well. Your scope of operation is within the diocese, but also outside the diocese, because whatever you speak within the diocese has the potential and the capacity to go beyond the diocese. So you will have a wider grasp of people to communicate with. That way, you must be sure you know what you are communicating. But let me stop at this point to also tell you about John Wesley. John Wesley was a great preacher, and his father was a vicar of a church before he died and died. And John Wesley, one of the days, as a great preacher, came to his own father's church. And the people loved John Wesley and would love to hear John Wesley preach. But John Wesley had no permission from the curate of that church for him to preach. And so when it was time for someone, the preacher, the curate, went to preach instead of John Wesley and preached a provocative sermon that nobody was edified by it. Now, seeing that he had no place to preach again, John Wesley decided that since the pulpit is restricted, I have my father's grave in the compound of the church. So he left the church and went outside the church building and within the church compound on his father's grave, because that belongs to the family. He stood there and preached. And do you know what happened? The interesting is that the people inside church left the curate inside church and went to him out there. And John Wesley recorded that he had not, that particular community had not seen the number of worshippers that ever than the one they saw that day. So you have a platform. Sometimes we struggle with platforms, we are not recognized, or not this one. It is because you have not deliberately looked at your work as a communicator who can communicate to a wider audience than the usual person. So a diocesan communicator acts as a trusted conduit of dissemination of official news. Trusted conduit of dissemination of official news and updates from the office of the bishop or from the bishop himself. Now, what do I mean by that? Trusted. It is not everything that you know you release. You are not just a conduit to just release information that comes to you. There are things you know you keep to yourself, there are things you know you release. And before you release anything, you clear with your bishop if it is beneficial to his person as a bishop and to the diocese as an institution and also to the body of Christ before you release it. There are times people have written wonderful things from different departments for us to release, and we will keep it with the private and said it will not go out, and it will not go out. Simply because we felt that although the message is good, but it is not the right time to release it. So we'll keep it. And it is important for us to create that trust with our bishops. When they know we can handle information in a trustworthy manner, they will release such information to us. And I'll give you an example. As a communicator in my capacity as the General Secretary, there are information that only me and the primate will know, or the bishops will know, simply because the information is not for everyone. Sometimes when we get to a point of crisis in the Church of Nigeria, particularly when it comes to the issue of election of bishops and the rank and all of those things, do you know that people can sponsor individuals within our secretariat to come and look for information from my office? They can sponsor. That's why it's not everyone who just comes to the office and says this one is welcome. No. You screen everyone who works, because whatever information is going out from that place must be a trusted information. And there are times, although I have secretaries in my office, but there are times that the information, because they are confidential and they are highly profile, I do not allow anyone of them to see. I type them myself, I transmit them myself. Nobody helps me. The essence is to maintain the trust of the Church of Nigeria and to maintain the trust of the primate of the Church of Nigeria. So communicators must know that. And there are times some sentences are removed just to ensure trust. Then the communicator also is to ensure a vibrant network of communication within the diocese. Sometimes things happen in the diocese and some parts of the diocese have no information whatsoever. You may say the archdeacons are there, the canons are there, the priests are there, the parish priests are there, but there are people who may deliberately, because of their antagonism towards the bishop or the diocese, refuse to release such information to the people. I know that priests will be familiar with this, that there are times that you feel offended by your bishop and his orders are not carried in defiance because you felt that he has not treated you well. It's not right, but it does happen. Now, but if we have a diocese communicator who has no boundary, who is able to reach out to the diocese, if the parish priest is not releasing the information, the diocese communicator is able to reach them out, particularly with the modern technology of communication, the social media. You can reach out. So, the vibrant network of communication in the diocese and outside the diocese. And you also amplify the voice of those who are marginalized in the diocese. This is one aspect that I do not think that communicators have taken note of. As a diocesan communicator, your business is to study the diocese, study your diocese, and be able to bring research reports to the bishop on the situation of people within the diocese. Sometimes their representatives may not present it as you, who is doing an independent research, will present. So you go to a community that no one is speaking on their matter, or perhaps the priest who is speaking there is known to be a complainant. So nobody is willing to hear him again. But as a communicator, when you bring your report to the bishop on such situations, the bishop is likely to look at it in a different light than he would have looked at it from the point of the view of the parish priest or the archdeacon. So I say the diocesan communicator is a voice to the voiceless in the diocese. But let me also buttress that it is not a Luther voice. It is not a voice of pressure group. It's a voice of calling attention to what is noble and what is good for the diocese. The portrait of the diocesan communicator also involves engaging in explaining complex church teachings and issues. So your work is not just writing and just speaking. You must be deliberately studious. You must learn theology. And I'm happy the Bishop Theologian mentioned earlier that you will have to learn theology. I also have it in my notes that the diocesan communicator necessarily must himself be a theologian of a sort. So, thankfully, the person who addressed us at this conference is the Bishop Theologian of Nigeria. There is need for you to co-op yourself or engage yourself in theological training, even if not for the sake of ordination. However, I know that sometimes once people finish theological school, the next thing they will ask the bishop is, can I be ordained now? They will forget that the essence of their going for training was simply because they have a role to perform as diocesan communicators. I understand there are many of us that are clergy who are doing that role, but those who are lay members please learn to study the Bible, but not just the Bible, learn theology, learn philosophy, conflict resolution mechanism, because sometimes it will not be the bishop who will reconcile communities or churches. It will be you as a communicator, because you have a clear picture of the vision of the church and of the bishop of your diocese. You are able to translate it to the people in the language they will understand and they follow, so you can reconcile issues. It is not everything that goes to the primate. For instance, there are communications that come to me from my email. Once I see them, I tackle them directly without letting the primate know. There are some that I know they have no business with us at all. Once I see them in my email, I just delete them and everyone is okay. Because I must protect the integrity of the Church of Nigeria. It's one of the commitments I made to myself that under my watch as the General Secretary, the Church of Nigeria must prosper and must not be pulled down. That's why when I see contents on our diocesan social media, sometimes I call attention of the bishops or some venerables in that place to say, what is this one? Last year, during Lent, early this year, on one diocesan platform, I saw a priest, and interestingly, a canon was with them, joining people in holy marriage on Sunday, but using purple stone. And it was on the social media again, because it was during Advent, and it was with yellow stone, purple stone. And I had to call the attention of the senior archbishop. I said, what is this one? I screenshot and I said, what is this one? Quickly they have to bring it down and start trying to cover up the story. I said, there's no justification for it or whatever. In fact, someone who first saw it told me, he said, is this a funeral marriage? And I said, it's not a funeral marriage. But so, it is important that you are sure of what you are doing, because you are representing the church on issues that are complex. Now, before you arrive here, I asked some of our bishops what kind of a diocesan communicator they would want back to their diocese after this conference. A few of them gave me their responses, and I collate their responses in this fashion. My question to them was, what kind of a diocesan communicator do you desire to have in your diocese? And the response was this: we would like to have diocesan communicators who are, one, godly and God-focused. Two, diocesan communicators who are alert to their responsibilities. Three, who are alert and responsive to the changes and challenges in the communication industry. Four, diocesan communicators that are adept at applying developments to the kingdom goals. 5, prayer-loving and prayerfully involved. That's some communicators. 6, there are some communicators that are willing and committed to discipling others in the area. Those who are willing and committed to discipling others in the area. 7, there are some communicators that are selfless and available. And the last one, 8, there are some communicators that are loud in projecting Jesus Christ. I think that it covers the content of this conference so far, because the presentation so far is about what we can do to become better communicators. Now I ask you, now that you are in this conference, what do your bishop and other members say about you as a diocesan communicator? What is their report about you? You know, Jesus asked him, so what do people say that I am? And when he asked Peter, the disciples, Peter responded and he was commended. So what kind of a diocesan communicator will you be presenting back to your diocese after this conference? Socrates said, an unexamined life is worth not living. There are some of us who have already attained professionalism in communication to the extent that when we sit down here, our assumption is that whatever is being said here, we already know it. Pride goes before effort. So I want us to unlearn and relearn new things and become better in our work. Can I have 4 persons to come quickly as I demonstrate before I run off. 4 persons to just come. And I'm not going to ask you to say anything, but I'm just going to demonstrate something, so don't be afraid. I'm going to communicate by demonstrating something. 4 persons. Can you stand here? There are 2 psychologists, one called Harrington Ingham and another one called Joseph Locke, that came out with a feedback model. You know, communication has to do with feedback. A feedback model. And the conclusion of their presentation is that there are things that you need to know that you don't know. So you do not need to assume, you ask others to help you. So let's take it that they have a window. Can you project that window now? And I will explain with these people here standing since they're here. Now, Johari window has 4 panels. These windows have 3 panels. 6 panels. So, but Johari window is 4 panels. Now, Johari window says that there are things about this man that he knows about himself, and the people around him also know about him. Is that true? What are the things you know about this person? His dog. Do you know your dog? An example, okay, so there are things about you as a diocese communicator that you know and your diocese members, they know. This person, there are things about him as a diocese communicator that he himself knows, but no other person knows. Is it possible like that? Are there things that you know about yourself that you think we don't know? There are. So we will not allow you to say them so that we don't know them. So it is true. There are things about us as a diocese communicator that you alone know, but nobody knows. Don't forget this one. He knows, and what happens to us, we also know. This one, he knows, we don't know. Then there is this another diocese communicator who does not know about himself, but we know about him. Is it true? Are there things about this person that he does not know about himself, but we know about him? Somebody give me an example. Someone give me an example. You have not studied him yet. So study him and get to know something about him that he does not know and tell me. Now let me give you a practical example. I walk as if I once had a fracture with my left leg. And I walk as if I use my left hand more. But I'm a right-handed person. But I never knew that I walk this way, and it's not dry at all. And no condition drained me. It was just like that, I don't know. So I walk this way. It was many years ago when my aunt told me, he said, "Are you a leftist?" I said, "No." He said, "But you walk with your left as if you're a left-handed person." It was after that I realized, actually I walk like this. So sometimes when I'm careful, I want to try to do like this so that I also do. But the point I'm saying is that there are things about us that we don't know. So communicators, there are many things about you that you need feedback. Allow the diocesan to give you feedback, allow the people to give you feedback, and it will better your work. Then there's the next communicator, the fourth one, by the Johari window, is that this person, there are things about him that he does not know, and the people around him also do not know. So everything about him is unknown. You are saying what is on the board. Now, so the point is this now. If this is the case, for us as diocese communicators, what do we do? The one you know, the one you don't know, who knows? God also knows about it. The one you know and the people know, God knows about it. The one you know, people don't know, who knows about it? God knows about it. The one you don't know, people know about it, who knows about it? God. The one you don't know and people don't know, who knows about it? So who should you go to get feedback first? God. Then you go from God to who? Your bishop, your people. So don't assume that you cannot be corrected. Don't assume, regardless of your professional level in communication, you are always a student and learner. So learn. That's the portrait of a diocese communicator that we must have, because sometimes I've seen where diocese communicators would want to control their bishops. And that's where sometimes your office is silenced because he appointed you and he can keep you down. Sometimes they prefer to do without your office because you are not amenable. You don't want to listen to them. Granted, you are an expert in your field, but someone appointed you, so you need feedback. So, what are we talking about? You must give leadership. As I round up, you must give leadership. And how do you give leadership? Not only to your team, I encourage you to organize seminars, workshops for our clergy in your diocese. Organize seminars. Public speaking is not just waking up and speaking. You have to learn some things. There is a way you speak and people follow, and there's a way you sleep and people are sleeping. So you must organize such for your priests in the parish. You don't know the theology, but at least you know this one. You must also organize them on how to write, because they are expected to write their sermons, but they are also expected to write. You know that by the grace of God, every clergy is supposed to be a writer. Because it is from among the house of clergy that someday someone is picked to become a bishop. And it is of necessity that the bishop must present his bishop's charge. Now, if a clergy is not properly trained in writing, he will make a mess of the office of a bishop because he won't write what is edifying. And like the Bishop Theologian mentioned earlier, then you will read what nobody is willing to read, to read again after the launching of the church. So organize such things. And be humble and do it with integrity. Your spirituality, you must not be absent in the place of prayer. Your duty is not just to write names and be absent in Bible studies and prayer meeting and such godly fellowship. Personally, you can take such engagements alone, but also corporately with the diocese. Then on issue of accountability, I've mentioned feedback already, but I'll also say openness. Be open to criticisms. And allow others to edit your work for you. Your work as a communicator must be edited. Please clap for this people. Let them go and sit down now. Thank you. Thank you. Your work must be edited. It must be vetted. Because sometimes what you are unable to see, another person sees. I tell you, except for rare letters, every single document we release from social Nigeria is edited. First, the primary will look at it, but sometimes, because of pressure of work, you may not see some things. I will look at it again, and other persons, if it is not confidential, other persons will look at it to give us their feedback of what they think the letter is communicating before we release it. So, learn to allow your work to be edited. Don't be afraid of being edited. I told you my story of how that elderly retired general told me that my sentence was poorly constructed because it almost confuse the reader from understanding the message. So from there I learned. Then you must be accountable by ensuring that finances given to you for your work and in your department are properly accounted for. You are not embezzling, you are not siphoning. You are doing it according to the desire of the diocesan who has appointed you. And finally, the work of communication is not a lazy man's work. So be up and doing. While others are sleeping, you should be awake to be on top of your game. It is expected that diocesan communicators will be above every other person in terms of gathering of information. The manager, the Church of Nigeria communication officer is always on top of it. If he sees anything online, he will quickly send it to me. And we will begin to work on it. If he sees anything, he will send it to me. I personally, as a person, before I became General Secretary, I have Google Alert. And I put names of persons that I want to see. Then I was in that sort of anything about Benjamin Kwashi online, it will come to my Google. Once his name appears online, it will come to my email. And I will read what is written about him. Anything about Church of Nigeria, I will read it. Anything about GAFO, I will read it. I have some Google search like that. So once it happens, it will just pop in, and you will know what is happening. That's how to remain current. That's how to know what is happening. And even in your field of education, if you want to know something about a person, a particular article, whatever is written on Google, it will just pop on in your email, and then you will read and study about it. I have taken your time in speaking, and I have exhausted every of the minutes they have given me, because they gave me a notice with even thanks, with thanks for my permitting that the time be like that. So I am grateful that you are thanking me for stopping at this point. May God bless us all in Jesus' name. Thank you so much.